Welcome to Healthy Future Vision channel. Happy to share with you. Have you ever thought that a tiny spice sitting quietly in a glass jar in the corner of your kitchen could change your health in profound ways? I've spent more than 30 years as a doctor caring for patients over 50, and I still vividly remember a Thanksgiving season a few years ago. One of my patients, Robert, 68 years old, had survived a heart attack and was stable on his prescribed blood-thinning medication. His family loved cooking hearty stews, and of course, cloves were a must-have ingredient. Within just 2 weeks after the holiday, he was rushed to the hospital because a small cut on his hand wouldn't stop bleeding. We discovered that his blood thinner had been amplified by that very familiar spice, cloves. That was the first time I realized sometimes the things we think are harmless can pose serious risks to our health, especially when we're taking medication. I want you to imagine this. You brew a cup of clove tea every morning because you've heard it's good for blood sugar, but after just a few weeks, you begin to feel shaky, sweaty, even confused. I once treated a patient, Elaine, 62, who had diabetes and was on insulin. She believed clove tea was a natural and healthy choice, but that very habit caused her blood sugar to drop to dangerously low levels. Cloves contain a compound called eugenol, something that can be both a friend and, at times, a troublemaker. It helps reduce inflammation and lower blood sugar, but it can also slow down your liver's ability to process medications. When the liver works more slowly, medicines can build up in the bloodstream, leading to reactions we never intended. I don't share these stories to frighten you. In fact, I want you to pause for a moment and think about your own habits. The things in your kitchen, on your medicine shelf, spices and supplements you may think are harmless, can quietly alter the way your body responds to medication. Have you ever noticed you might not have told your doctor about what you cook and eat every day? Many people believe that because cloves are natural, they must be safe. But nature, like life itself, always has two sides. We can appreciate its benefits, but we must know how to use it wisely. For a young, healthy person, a few pinches of cloves in a stew may do no harm. But for older adults, especially those on blood thinners, diabetes medication, or cholesterol-lowering drugs, the amount and timing can become a matter of life and death. I also remember an elderly couple who had lived together for over 40 years. The husband had anemia and was taking iron supplements. They enjoyed drinking clove tea after dinner. It wasn't until later that we discovered this habit had greatly reduced his iron absorption, slowing down his recovery. He was taking his medication faithfully, but it wasn't as effective, all because of a seemingly harmless cup of tea. You see, health isn't just in the pills we take or the numbers on a lab test. It also lies in the small, everyday habits we practice. A single spice, a cup of tea, a holiday dish. Each can bring benefits or problems, depending on how we use and understand it. Science has clearly shown eugenol in cloves can increase the risk of bleeding when combined with blood thinners, lower blood sugar when paired with insulin, block the absorption of iron and calcium, and even disrupt digestion when consumed with a high-fiber diet. These facts are not meant to make you avoid cloves entirely, but to help you use them more safely and wisely. When we're young, we may pay little attention to such interactions, but as we pass the age of 50, our bodies become more sensitive and more easily affected. That's why I often advise my patients, tell your doctor not only about your medications, but also about your diet, your tea habits, and any herbal remedies you use. Each of these details helps us understand better and adjust your treatment appropriately. So today, I don't just want to share a medical fact. I want to remind you of the subtlety needed in self-care. Things we once overlooked can now become the key to good health. And sometimes, wisdom lies in knowing when to ask the right question. Is this really safe for my body and my medications? If you're listening now, I hope you'll take a moment to think about everything you consume each day, from your meals and drinks to your medications. We don't need to live in fear, but we do need understanding, because understanding is how we protect ourselves and those we love. And remember, a tiny clove can add wonderful flavor to your food, but it can also change the course of your treatment. Use it with respect and mindfulness so that nature's gifts can truly work alongside us to support our health. When you've lived more than half a century, You realize that health isn't found only in the pills we take, but also in the small things we do every day. An evening cup of tea, a family meal, or even just a pinch of spice. Today, I want to share with you about one such spice: cloves. I've been a doctor for over 35 years, much of that time caring for patients over the age of 50. I still remember many stories. Often the problem wasn't that the illness worsened, but rather unexpected interactions between medication and everyday foods that patients thought were harmless. And cloves are one of those things. 1. Interaction with blood thinners. I remember Robert, a patient who had survived a heart attack. He was prescribed blood-thinning medication to prevent further clots, medicines many older adults know well, like warfarin or aspirin. For many years, his clotting levels stayed stable. But then came Thanksgiving, and his family prepared traditional dishes, stews and roasts with generous amounts of cloves. Just 2 weeks later, he was hospitalized because a small cut while peeling an apple wouldn't stop bleeding. Tests revealed that his blood's clotting time had increased to a dangerous level. The culprit was eugenol, the main active compound in cloves, which had combined with the blood thinner and made his blood too thin. This is not uncommon. Research confirms that eugenol inhibits platelet aggregation, which is essential for blood clotting. For people on blood thinners, this combination can multiply the risk of bleeding. That's why I always tell my patients, use cloves only as a light seasoning, and never consume clove tea or essential oil if you're on blood-thinning therapy. 2. Interaction with diabetes medications. Another patient, Elaine, 62, had type 2 diabetes. She believed that clove tea would help control her blood sugar, something she'd read online. At first, her blood sugar did drop, and she thought it was a good sign. But within a few weeks, she experienced shaking, cold sweats, dizziness, and once had to be rushed to the ER for severe hypoglycemia. We discovered that cloves themselves also have blood sugar lowering effects. When combined with insulin and metformin, the effects doubled, causing her blood sugar to drop to dangerous levels. A younger body might adapt more easily, but in our 50s and 60s, even a simple cup of tea or a supplement that seems healthy can disrupt the careful balance your doctor has set. 3. Effects on liver metabolized medications. What many people don't realize is that eugenol in cloves slows the liver's activity, specifically the CYP450 enzymes. These enzymes are like factory workers responsible for breaking down and processing more than 75% of the medications we take. When these enzymes are inhibited, medications can build up in the blood. I once treated a patient taking statins for cholesterol and a mild sedative. When they added clove extract to their daily routine, their medication levels rose, leading to muscle pain and fatigue. The troubling part is that this reaction varies from person to person. Some are highly sensitive, reacting to even a small amount of cloves. Others seem unaffected. This unpredictability is why I always advise patients to avoid concentrated forms of cloves if they're on important medications. 4. Interference with iron absorption. I recall another elderly patient, Mr. Johnson, who had anemia. He faithfully took his iron supplements every day, but his condition improved very slowly. We later discovered he had the habit of drinking clove tea after dinner, something he thought harmless. It turned out that cloves contain tannins, compounds that bind to non-heme iron found in plant foods and supplements, making it unavailable for absorption. Research shows tannins can reduce iron absorption by 60 to 90%, especially when consumed near mealtime or supplement intake. For those being treated for anemia, this is an important point to consider. Simply separating the timing, avoiding cloves for about 2 hours before and after taking iron, can make a significant difference. 5. Impact on calcium absorption and bone health. Many postmenopausal women don't realize that cloves can also affect how the body uses calcium. It doesn't block calcium absorption directly like it does with iron, but it can alter gut microbiota and digestive enzymes, reducing the bodies to utilize calcium for strong bones. I've seen patients who drank calcium-fortified milk every night but still experienced worsening osteoporosis. Upon closer review, We found they had the habit of drinking milk tea with cloves, thinking it was just for flavor. For older adults, especially women, this is something to be cautious about. Enjoy cloves as a flavoring, but avoid consuming them in concentrated forms alongside milk or calcium supplements. 6. Digestive effects with high-fiber foods. Fiber is usually a good friend to digestion, helping the gut function well. But many patients told me they experienced bloating and gas when eating high-fiber foods, along with clove-rich dishes. The reason is that cloves have strong antimicrobial properties, killing not only harmful bacteria, but also the beneficial microbes that help break down fiber. When the gut microbiome is disrupted, fiber doesn't ferment properly, leading to gas, bloating, and sometimes abdominal pain. This also affects people taking probiotics or digestive enzymes. If consumed close to clove-rich meals, the beneficial bacteria may be weakened. 7. Interaction with alcohol and alcoholic beverages. I once had a patient who said he often enjoyed a cup of mulled wine with cloves during the holidays to warm up. But he began experiencing facial flushing, rapid heartbeat, and sometimes low blood pressure after drinking. The reason is that eugenol inhibits the activity of an enzyme called ALDH, preventing alcohol from being fully metabolized and causing acetaldehyde to build up, leading to flushing, nausea, and low blood pressure. For older adults, these reactions can be dangerous, especially if they're also taking medications that affect the liver. 8. Impact on blood pressure. A few of my patients with low blood pressure reported feeling more dizzy when they drank strong clove tea. Eugenol can cause mild vasodilation, which may not be an issue for most people, but for those on blood pressure-lowering medications, it can drop blood pressure further and increase the risk of falls. 9. Risks when combined with NSAIDs. Many older adults need NSAIDs to relieve joint pain. When combined with cloves, which also have anti-inflammatory properties, the effects can stack up, increasing the risk of stomach irritation and even gastrointestinal bleeding. I always advise patients, if you're taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs regularly, limit your intake of clove tea or extracts. 10. Effects on kidney function. Few people realize that consuming large amounts of clove oil or strong clove tea can burden the kidneys, especially in older adults or those on diuretics. Prolonged oxidative stress can gradually reduce kidney function over time. I share all this not to make you fearful or avoid cloves entirely. In fact, in small culinary amounts, cloves are a wonderful spice, enhancing flavor, aiding digestion, and rich in antioxidants. The key is to understand and use cloves wisely. One thing that age teaches us is this: everything in life has two sides. What brings flavor to a dish can also disrupt the delicate balance of the body. And cloves, that tiny, fragrant spice so many people love, are the clearest example. Over decades of practice, I've seen many patients who took their medication on time and followed their diets carefully, yet still faced complications because of what seemed like harmless habits. An evening cup of herbal tea, a holiday dish full of spices. Sometimes these were the very pieces that tipped the balance. I share this not to make you fearful or overly restricted. On the contrary, I believe that knowledge brings freedom. When we understand what we put into our bodies, we are no longer passive. We become partners with our doctors in protecting our own health. Remember, our goal is not to remove cloves from our lives. They bring the warmth of the holidays, aid digestion, and are rich in antioxidants. What we need is mindfulness and moderation, knowing when and how much is enough. For those living with chronic conditions, heart disease, diabetes, liver or kidney problems, moderation and understanding are even more crucial. Simply telling your doctor, "I often drink clove tea," or "I like to use this spice in my cooking," allows us to adjust your medication or give you proper advice. That's how we work together to keep you safe. I want you to think about this. Health in your 50s, 60s, and 70s is no longer just about treating disease. It's the art of living in harmony with your body, with your medications, and even with the simple spices in your meals. Many people come to me and ask, "Doctor, should I give up cloves entirely?" My answer is always, you don't need to give it up, but you should learn to listen to your body and use it wisely. A small pinch in a stew is harmless, but a strong cup of clove tea every day, especially if you're on medication, is worth reconsidering. When we understand and respect the power of nature, we are also respecting our own bodies. Every meal is not just about filling the stomach. It's part of caring for our health. Every choice, no matter how small, contributes either to balance or to its disruption. I hope that after today's story, you'll look at that jar of cloves on your kitchen shelf differently, not with worry, but with awareness and respect. Because knowledge is what helps us live more freely, more healthily, and more peacefully. And remember, when needed, don't hesitate to share your small, everyday habits with your doctor. That's the bridge between science and daily life, where we work together to preserve your health in a steady and safe way. Enjoy the flavor of cloves, but always put your safety first. Because health is not merely the absence of disease, but the peace that comes from knowing you're caring for your body with knowledge and love.